We're at Oaklawn Cemetery today in Lake City. Lake City was built on the foundation of a major Seminole Indian village called Alligator. It wasn't named Alligator in their language, but that's what it translates to in ours. And before that, I'm imagining that they took it from whoever was here first, the Appalachia or the Timucua, whomever. The reason why we're here is because Oaklawn Cemetery contains a Confederate war monument. This is to the unknown dead of the Battle of Olustee. These men served their country when their country called. They were on order to attend this battle, fight this battle. Federal invasion coming in from the east, from Jacksonville, heading over to Tallahassee. Tallahassee remained the only unconquered Confederate capital, Confederate state capital, and they never took it. After a while, they didn't want it. It wasn't like Richmond. I mean, they tried to take it, couldn't get it, basically just gave up on it. It wasn't worth the lives to take it. Anyway, 155 men who died either on the field or died in hospital after. We don't know how long after. It could have been days or weeks or months. They languished in pain until they passed away. They're buried right here. This also contains the grave of the last known Confederate War widow from the state of Florida. She passed away in 1985. She married someone who was probably in their 60s or 70s when she was younger and outlived him. The last Civil War veteran was a Confederate. He passed away in 1959. So we're here because we want to see these monuments. We want to document them. We want to stand, just like we do all of them. The Civil War is one of my main areas of focus, always has been, always will be. As everyone knows, we live in an age now of revisionism, where our past is being destroyed, denied, altered, revised. And we want to try to see as many of these sites as we can. We can't see them all. The one in Orlando just got taken down, and I never visited that. And that's one of the things that prompted this trip. There's a couple other places I'm going to see on this trip. I've seen a bunch before. There's a bunch more I haven't seen. Eventually, they're all going to be gone. This is one of them. Eventually, no vestige of the Confederacy will exist in terms of monuments or memory. So we're here to see that now before that happens. We're going to take a look at the obelisk itself. As you can see, this neighborhood is what it is. So this is the beginning of the plot of the unknown soldiers who fought at the Battle of Olustee. That is the obelisk monument to them, to their ultimate sacrifice. These men did not fight to maintain slaves. They barely owned the land they lived on. They eked out a subsistence level existence, every one of them. But when their country called, when their homes were being invaded by other men from another country who wanted to tell them how they should live, these men answered that call, just like soldiers in all eras do. We see a rarity now since the South Carolina shootings. We don't see Confederate flags up anywhere anymore. And here we do. This is a monument to the 155 unknown Confederate soldiers killed in the Battle of Olustee or died in Confederate hospital. These are men who, again, served their country faithfully when their country called, and whose bodies were interred here. Their families never knew what happened to them. 155 families, 8, 10, 15, 20, 30 people each family did not know and never knew what happened to their kin after they left to go fight in the war. This is an extremely compelling and sobering place. Fascinating. We're going to sidebar here real quick. This is one of the ones who was known. He passed away in 1863, and this is a standard military headstone that we see everywhere. North, south, whatever war, standard U.S. issue cemetery headstone. Now we see here, we have Nina Fiegel, the last Confederate war widow of Florida, CSA. They'll have to sandblast that off or just remove the whole thing altogether, I guess. This is a very old cemetery. Goes back to the 50s, I believe. I'm not sure if it's earlier. Couldn't find a lot on this in terms of the history of it. It's kind of run down. It's in a sort of a more or less sketchy neighborhood, so it's not really. There's some vandalism. I mean, there is some vandalism here. Here we see this was erected in 1901. I had somebody say that this was older than the one in St. Augustine, but if it was 1901, that's not the case. But again, I want to see them all, as many as I can. The goal would certainly be all. If I had the wherewithal and means, I'd see every one of these before they're gone. I'd find them and document them and acknowledge that they ever existed, because the goal now is to erase the existence of these sites. Facing us, in front of us rather, is the newer side of the cemetery. It's basically, it seems to me, divided in half almost. The much older stones are that way, and the newer stones are behind us. I'm not disinterested in the newer stones, but I'm certainly much more interested in the older ones. So we're going to take a brief segue down there. And good morning, Brenda Bouchard, lovely research assistant. Honey Pumpkins. Hope you're enjoying your visit to New York with your chilies. Give your chilies a great big hug and a kiss for me, please. So this is a pretty interestingly laid out, and I don't know that I've ever seen an unknown plot before. Unknown either way. The one in St. Augustine is dedicated. Most of those guys are not known, but they're buried underneath, in vaults underneath the pyramids, the 3 pyramids, and that's more or less a monument as well as a cemetery, a grave site. And so I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen this like this before. Normally, they're known. This battle would have been on the far outposts of the war. It was far away from the normal war. It was 1864, so there wasn't a lot of. I mean, there was only one road basically. Some sandy paths. They had to sail down here. They couldn't have, walked through the Okefenokee, or they could have taken a road from Atlanta to Tallahassee, I guess, but that was all blocked off. I mean, that was a long way back then too. So anyway, we're gonna just check out some of the, what I think are more interesting features of this cemetery. The older part of the cemetery, I should say. There's some really cool wrought iron here. There's a very neat plot that was very expensively done with some very significant solid wrought iron. All this wrought iron is lasting, but some of it has deteriorated and collapsed, like you see right here. But the one I'm wanting to show is much thicker and is completely unfazed by time and the elements. The other thing are the bricks. What we see up here in this part of the state and further north, throughout the south, are brick vaults, essentially. They're I would say crypts or mausoleums that look like it. I don't think they're just monuments on top. I think someone built these, laid the body on a slab, and then bricked them over and cemented them over. And I guess that was a less expensive form of interment. Oops, that's not good. Here's one of them. There's one over here that's completely caved in, and you can see down in it. I'm not going to go down in it, but you can see very far down in it, and it doesn't look like there's anything in there. So I'm not sure about my theory there. I like these old benches when they put these benches up. It's so poignant to me that they leave these benches for someone to come and sit and, you know, basically honor their past loved ones. And they look so, they remind me of a baseball or football field with no one on it. They're so empty. Here's the one I was talking about. This is, this person passed when he was 40 years old. He was obviously well off and well loved. They didn't just throw him in the ground and put a little marker over him. They went the whole all out with this. They got a brick pathway. They got some kind of old lock. Now this guy passed away in 1868, so I don't think that's an 1868 lock. So that means too that his family survived a while into whenever that lock was made. But that lock is not coming off. Obviously, it's very rusted. It's very much on there. Here's again is one of the benches. Very cool. There's a picture of a dog there. He must have been an animal dog lover kind of guy. John Lucius Dozier. And let's see, they call the Dozier School. I wonder maybe if that's some of his kin. People in this part of the state tend to stay. Their kin tend to stay. Less mobile than some of the others. Here's the one I was talking about earlier, where you can see, I don't want to risk snakeage or anything, but you can see I can see at least a foot down in there. So someone has caved this thing in and either taken what was in there out, or I don't know. I hate to speculate, but it's obviously damaged. And there's no trees right around here. This didn't, a tree branch didn't fall. We see in some cemeteries where tree branches fall and cause damage and things like that, but that's not from that. Here's some more of those kind of vaults. Interesting feature here with this little flue out. It might be a child, or it might be maybe that's the person's feet. I don't know. Interesting though, the way they've done it. And you can just see there's a lot of interesting wrought iron, a lot of brick fencing. So also in this one, going back to this one, I hate to keep coming back to it, but there's some concrete poured on top of it, as if it was almost as if it was some sort of a repair after the fact. So that's pretty cool. Pretty interesting. Lead you to, every one of these stones, every one of the bodies in these stones has a story. Somebody's kin from somewhere, and someone came along and cared for that at some point. Someone cared enough to put it there to begin with. Here's another well done wrought iron plot with an empty bench out front. The G, that's a Mason sign. So that's from the Masons. We're not going to go through every one of these sites. Young apparently appears to be a prominent name here. This is all Young. There's some more Youngs over there, some Youngs over here. So it seems to be a very prominent name for this area. And some more brick structures. All right, well, we're not gonna go through every headstone in the cemetery. We've already photographed it, so we're gonna shut this bad boy down and head on out our way. Just want to see the cemetery, but also document. More importantly, actually, in this case, usually cemeteries are very compelling, and certainly this one would be all by itself. But knowing that there's a Confederate memorial here made it a must-see. We'll see how long the good people of Lake City can hold out before they cave in and are forced to remove the monument. It's only a matter of time. Once people start getting the idea in their head, they'll activist until it happens. Tampa forestalled a removal recently, but that's just a matter of time. I mean, that's just a stopgap measure. You're never going to stop revisionism once people set their mind on it. And these people have become fixated on everything Southern, and they've been working on it for years to destroy it, and they're doing a very good job right now of it. So we're going to continue on our journey for the day.